I saw the quotes last night from McCarthy that the team relishes the opportunity and I relish it too. I guess you have to come up with something. I guess you just can't say, we're not very good and this is going to be a long year and we're going to win some and we're going to lose some. But if we do make it to the playoffs, and we probably won't, we're going to get our asses kicked before the divisional round. Either wild card. I mean, we've seen teams like this before, scratch and claw and hope and maybe, and that's been the story of the Vikings, frankly, for the last decade. Maybe get to the playoffs, win a wild card game, get blown out in the divisional round. When you lose a game like that at home to one of the elite teams in the conference, what is there to relish about it, Devin? What can you lie to yourself about to make you feel like it's going to be any better than what it's been?
First off, they're never going to bring you in for any pregame hype-up speech or anything because it's just way too real. But I think for the Cowboys, you have to hang your hat on what you've done and hang your hat on your best player. So you have some injuries. You kind of lean on, hey, we got to get guys healthy. We need other guys to step up until they get healthy. And then you talk about how Dak and CeeDee Lamb haven't connected the way that we plan for them to connect. And you try to hang your hat on those things, the kind of guys in the locker room that you have that you know are playmakers. But I think the hard thing is it's not just their record, it's the way they lose. It's the way that you come out at home and get just embarrassed that way. So even though you hang your hat on some of those things and the character of your team, I think Mike McCarthy's also questioning, how well do I know my team right now? Like, what is going on that I can't get these guys ready to play when it's time to play every single week? So as much as coaches and players will try to foster up some type of excitement or something to lean on, I think right now in Dallas, if I'm being honest, it's tough to find really anything the way that they've played some of these home games. Yes, you lean on the good things in the games you've won and you played well, but when it's so limited and the bad outweigh the good, it's hard to fully and truly believe that you can get things turned around.
So, as we finally get to what this segment is about, confidence meter, I'm the one that took us off the rails. I apologize for that. But on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your confidence level that the Cowboys can bounce back from the humiliation that they endured on Sunday?
I give them a 5 simply because I think Dak Prescott is a really good quarterback. And the reason it's not higher is because what's left on their schedule. They have San Francisco, Atlanta, Philly twice, Houston, Washington twice, Cincinnati, and Tampa on that schedule. So what does turning it around mean? It might just mean you look better, but it might not result in a lot of wins because they have some of the best teams in the NFL on that schedule. But at 3-3, I give them a 50-50 chance to get this thing pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, and I guess bounce back requires context. Bounce back to what? Bounce back to a fringe playoff team that gets its ass kicked in the divisional round at the latest. Confidence they'll get to that is, a 6 or a 7. Confidence that there'll be a team that can play in the NFC Championship for the first time since 1995, that's a 1 or a 0. This team's disqualified. It disqualified itself from getting to the NFC Championship. All sorts of crazy stuff is going to need to happen for the Cowboys to get there. And it's going to be injuries and other weirdness for the teams they'll be competing with, or weird moments, bad calls, gust of wind. They're going to have to thread the needle of flukes to get themselves to where they've been trying to get since 1995 and in turn save the job of Mike McCarthy. The only good news, they don't play another home game until November the 10th. That's good news for the paying customers. That's good news for the people who show up and have to endure what has been so far this year deficits of 21-6, 28-6, and 27-6. This team is not built to come back from that kind of a margin. They play from ahead well. They play from behind poorly. Speaking of teams that play from, they're never ahead. They're rarely ahead, so we don't know how they'll play from ahead. The Cleveland Browns. Let's hear from Kevin Stefanski on the latest time he's been asked the weekly question of benching Deshaun Watson. Why not put in Jameis Winston to give the Browns a spark? Here's what he said.
Yeah, I think it's just important that we continue to do everything we can to play good, sound football. I think there were moments of that, obviously, yesterday. Um, I think Deshaun gives us the best chance to win, continues to give us the best chance to win, and we need to play really good offensive football at his position and really at every position to be successful on Sunday.
Yeah, look, I feel bad for the guy. He's stuck. He's not making the decision. He said, it's my decision. It's my decision. Ownership's supportive. No, ownership's telling you directly or indirectly, expressly or implicitly what to do. And we all know that by now. Whatever the strategy is, whatever it is, it's not coming from the coach. It's coming from hiring the organization, which is kind of how it works in some teams, especially Cleveland. So with all that said, Devin, what is your confidence meter level, 1 to 10, that Deshaun Watson can turn it around at this point?
This is easy. This is a 0. You can't even give him a point. I think right now, from what we've seen on tape, this Cleveland Browns team, they don't do anything well enough to think that they can turn it around. They can't really hang their hat on much other than a couple explosive plays they played on defense where, you force a fumble and Rodney McLeod scoops and scores against the Raiders, or this week Myles Garrett blocks a field goal and they scoop and score. But other than that, nothing looks good. We thought this defense would be able to dominate. They haven't been able to do that. The offense can't do much. So, and they're in a tough division, the AFC North, where you got Baltimore, you got Pittsburgh, and you got Cincinnati, who's going to be battling to get back in this race. So I think Cleveland, if you're a Brownie right now and you're on that team, hey, book your flight. Decide where you want to go on vacation in January and let the rest be history.
Yeah, don't worry about having to go to New Orleans once the playoffs can culminate in the Super Bowl. I don't know what, and I'm with you, it's 0. It's -7, -4 since he wears number 4. I don't know what they're trying to prove by continuing to play him. And at one level, it's just the stubbornness of, we have to justify the contract and the draft picks. That's that's Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually the accurate one. At a deeper level, though, this is a team that had a 5-year plan to tank. And they polished it up so it wasn't express. And what do I mean by that? Well, they were paying bonuses based upon how much cap space they carried over. They were paying bonuses based on how many draft picks they stockpiled for future years. It was the consequences of dismantling your team, of not spending on your team, and what flows from that. You're going to lose. That's what they did, and Hugh Jackson brought all that to a head a few years ago because he's the one that was the scapegoat when they went 0-16. Maybe they're doing that again. Maybe the idea is, hey, okay, it's no lose for us. He either gets back to being the guy he was, which would be good, or he keeps stinking, which will be good also, and maybe along the way he'll decide, I'm getting too old for this shit. Sorry, London. And he'll just retire. That's the only way out of this at this point, is if he just decides, I don't want to do this anymore. Keep your $92 million. I'm going home. Wishful thinking, but I just feel like that's why ownership, who knows why, but I feel like there's no bad way out of this for them if they're committed to keeping him on the field. Either he gets better, he stays bad, and we get a better draft pick, or he potentially just decides, I've had enough.
And that's the problem with losing. I think when you lose over and over again for years, and my brother was there for that 0-16 season, he said it to me. He said, it's a losing culture now. It's like everybody always thinks in the back of their mind, hey, we're the Browns. It's just not going to work out. And that's just the feeling you get from this Cleveland Browns organization. They have to find a way out of it, and I don't think losing is the way. Insert Jameis Winston, see if you get a spark and go win some games.
Did they give out like a ring or a watch or anything to commemorate the 0-16 season? I guess not, since they weren't the first to do it.
Yeah, you just I think you got a front row seat at the parade that they have for the 0-16
season. They won't be having many parades in Jacksonville for the Jaguars. Here is Doug Peterson, who very well might have been fired yesterday if the Jaguars weren't staying in London for consecutive games. He came out and said on Sunday, after Andre Sisco said he saw a lot of quit in the Jaguars defense, and Doug Peterson said, we need to change the culture. Here's Peterson from Monday regarding his comments about changing the culture.
Obviously, we've lost some games here, right? So we want to change that culture to a winning culture. That's why we coach and that's why we play. I think, to that statement that I made, I mean, these guys, listen, they bust their tail. I've said this, and you've seen how we've practiced. I mean, these guys bust their tails during the week, and I don't want them to feel, even though we haven't won yet, I don't want them to feel sort of mentally defeated, if that makes sense. Because that's where the slippery slope comes in, right? If you feel like you're going into a game where you don't have a chance, then you're not going to have a chance. You're not going to give yourself an opportunity to win that game. So that's what I mean by that culture there. We just got to make sure these guys stay mentally, stay positive with each other, stay positive, during the week. And listen, bottom line is just go out and have fun.
Folks, what you just heard is what happens when somebody says something that they know they never should have said, and they're given a chance to try to clean it up the next day. Because we all know what it means when a coach says, when anyone connected to football says we have to change the culture, and no word salad from Doug Peterson. I respect Doug Peterson. And I think he knew that he probably shouldn't have gone there, because you're filling out your own pink slip, Devin, when you're the coach of a team 6 weeks into a season saying we got to change the culture. Who created the culture? Who's responsible for it? You can't change it at this point.
It's interesting because all throughout sports or any type of major group, the word culture is always used. Change the culture. We have a good culture. The culture's bad. And I'm like, what does that really mean? And I remember I read The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle, and in that book, they talk about culture is people. It's the people who create it. Whatever it is that they decide to do day in and day out, they create that culture. So when you say the culture has to change, I agree with you. It's like you're saying, guys, I'm the culture. I created this. Get rid of me. You need new people in here to create the new culture. So, and I understand when you get after the game and you're talking and you say that, and I'm sure he probably has said that to his team, but it's just not something you want to say in the media, because now he got asked about it Monday. He's going to get asked about it again today. He's going to get asked about it tomorrow. He's going to get asked about it after the game. It's going to be a question, did the culture change? What are some of the things you're seeing? Did the culture get worse? Now he's created this kind of storm of questions that are going to surround only the culture of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
The only way to change the culture during the season is change the coach, bottom line. So, what is your confidence level that the Jaguars can indeed find a way to change the culture 6 weeks into the season?
I'll give it a 1. You get to stay in London. You got the New England Patriots coming in who, they have Gerard Mayo, new head coach. So sometimes changing the culture starts with just one win. And this is a game that if I'm Jacksonville, you should win this game. Like you've played, not great ball this year, but New England has been struggling. They're trying to find their way. So it's a game that I think both teams are looking like they could win. But I think for Jacksonville, I give you a 1 because this is a winnable game. You got to go do it. And it's not a guarantee you will do it, or the number would be a little higher.
And, I don't think I've ever really said this before, because I've got a ton of respect for Shad Khan, his success story, coming to this country as a teenager, getting a college degree and starting a business and turning it into the kind of behemoth that allowed him to buy an NFL team. But he's owned the team for over a decade now. And if I'm going to say it about Woody Johnson, if I'm going to say it about Jimmy Haslam, if I'm going to say it about other owners who are presiding over teams that are historically dysfunctional, it all starts with the owner. He's the guy that hired Urban Meyer. He got a kind of a pass for that. Like, I don't know that anybody was assuming Urban Meyer was going to be Bill Belichick. And when it went off the rails, it's kind of like, what did you really do to make sure that this is the right guy? So at some point, Khan is the one who needs to be blamed for creating the culture. It gets back to Cleveland. Devin, you can change the coaches, you can change out this, you can change out that, but there's a culture that your brother detected there that even though they accidentally got to the playoffs last year, they had a great defense, and I thought they were good enough to advance. I mean, they have a great team, and they would be even better if they didn't have this Deshaun Watson ball and chain. But the culture starts, yes, at a certain level with the coach, but also with ownership.
Would you think of Khan differently if, the New England Patriots, Jacksonville Jaguars, AFC game 2017 season, if Miles Jack is able to, run that return back, would you think of Jacksonville a little differently?
Well, he was able to run it back. It was a horrible call.
Yes,
I still think what would have happened, because you guys would have been down 17 points. What? It was the fourth quarter or late third quarter. You'd have been down 17 points. Tommy would have found a way to win it. 10 points, 17 points, he still would have found a way to win it.
I agree.
All right. But you're right. If they'd made it to a Super Bowl, that goes a long way toward, but they're one of the handful of teams that never has, including the Browns. So at some point you got to, and the Jets for 53 years, at some point you got to look at the top of the organization. Are they making the right decisions? And are they sticking with their decisions through thick and thin? I don't know. Maybe they should let this ride. It's a tough one. I'm glad I don't have to make the decision. I'm glad I just get to criticize the decision that someone else has made. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.